Ladies and gentlemen, we are under attack. Our very way of life, our very existence is threatened. They have already taken over Washington. They continue to destroy our Constitution. It is time to take back our country now.
The Wise Conservative Show, bringing wisdom back to politics.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Wise Conservative Show. My name is Dakota Wise. Call in live for the very first time. We have a live phone line. That number would be 909-297-5812. Again, that is 909-297-5812. Now, we have an action-packed show today, ranging from anything to the elections, to North Korea, and even Israel. We've got a packed show, but first, it's inevitable. Let's go ahead and start with this week in election news. Starting off with the one and only Mitt Romney, who is again making his voice known, sending out robocalls in primary states that are voting tonight, supporting pretty much anyone but Donald Trump. Now, I've come out in support of Ted Cruz. I've said that I am not a huge Donald Trump fan. I'll vote for him, but I'm not going to endorse him. He's not my favorite. But this Mitt Romney thing with Donald Trump is really bothering me for one sole reason. Mitt Romney has this elitism about him. He's pretty much coming out and telling the American people that they're wrong in who they're voting for and that they need to be voting for someone else, pretty much whoever the establishment chooses to endorse. Now, like I mentioned, not a huge Donald Trump fan, but that is pretty much the only reason that I've even I'd rather see Donald Trump win than Marco Rubio, for the sole fact that we have the establishment in Washington coming out and trying to tell the American people that they're wrong, that they need to continue voting for establishment politicians who are being paid for and bought off by corporations, and will continue to allow the same progressive movement and ideas to thrive in Washington, D.C. Now, so that's Mitt Romney. What a complete joke. He lost a very easy election cycle. He disappeared the last 2 months of the race, gave President Obama a second term. He needs to stay out. He had his 15 minutes. I don't know if he's trying to get involved for whatever reason, but Mitt Romney, what a joke. Speaking of jokes, let's go ahead and talk about our favorite woman. Could only be Hillary Clinton. She gave a very interesting speech this Saturday. I generally try not to listen to the woman because she absolutely pisses me off so much. I honestly cannot stand to listen to her. It's absolutely terrible. But I listened to it for a few minutes, and within the first 10 minutes, I picked up a few sound bites, really interesting. First off, she brings up a good point with this sound bite. Go ahead and take a listen.
And even if the Senate confirms that nominee, there may well be 1 or 2 more openings in the next 4 years. We need a Supreme Court that expands voting rights, not cuts back on them. One that protects workers' rights, not breaks unions. One that reverses Citizens United, not hangs a for sale sign on the door of American democracy.
Now, she has absolutely valid points in the sense that the next 4 years we might see another 1 or 2 Supreme Court positions opening up. Now, that is what we already have, a high-stakes election cycle. Already, the fate of the Supreme Court currently stands in whoever is going to be elected. But if Hillary Clinton becomes president, and we have 1 or 2 more positions on the Supreme Court open up, that would spell disaster for the conservative movement. We would lose control. We would have a very progressive Supreme Court. And now, the Supreme Court is not supposed to be there to legislate. They're not supposed to be there to be influencing the law creation process. But we've seen that the Supreme Court holds a very weighty position when it comes to deciding how exactly this country moves forward. Already we've seen them make momentous changes to the United States, taking us further and further to the left. If we have an actual left-leaning Supreme Court, not only is the conservative movement going to be dealt a great blow, it will have been dealt a great blow for decades to come, because they're going to choose the youngest liberals they can in order to fill those vacancies, and we're going to be left with the after effects of a Hillary Clinton presidency long after she's gone. Long after. We cannot allow Hillary Clinton to nominate 1, 2, 3 people on the Supreme Court. It will be an absolute disaster to the United States. It will be a disaster to the Republican Party. It'll be a disaster for decades to come. Now, moving on into her speech, she talks about states' rights. This one is really what got me. I turned off the speech after I heard this. Let me share it with you.
We have allowed our politics to be hijacked by extreme ideologues in state governments all over our country.
We have allowed states to be hijacked by extreme ideologues. Now, the United States was built off the principle that what's not left in the Constitution is left to the states. But we've seen that the left has for decades now been trying to push for a stronger central federal government. They would love to leave nothing up to the states because the states individually don't hold the same opinions that they do. There's a lot of right-leaning states still, and so it absolutely pisses off the left-leaning federal government when states try to use the powers that were left to them. This right here, this is a scary quote coming from Hillary Clinton, right? If Hillary Clinton had her way, she would remove any of the state rights that currently exist. She would not leave anything up to the states. And the way that power works, the closer we can get the power to the American people, the better, right? Having a central federal government with the most power, the most control, it's just not... It's not what the Founding Fathers envisioned. It takes the power away from the people. It puts essentially a one-size-fits-all solution where, honestly, that doesn't work at all. We have way too widespread differences in the United States. It's a very diverse place. But taking the power down as close to the American people as possible ensures that everyone is equally represented in the government, not just what the liberal policies want, because we'll talk about this a little bit later, but especially the progressive movement, they talk about tolerance, yet they're only tolerant if you agree with them. It is complete hypocrisy, but we'll touch on that a little bit later. Hillary Clinton, all in all, I can't stand listening to her. I really don't want to spend that much more time talking about her. But she's a scary candidate. She scares me. Because if she had her way, she would fundamentally change everything about the United States. Because the Democratic Party is very pessimistic about the situation in the United States. Jason Veely talked about this last night on his show. And he brought up a great point. The Democratic Party is very pessimistic about the United States. They never say anything good that's happening here. It's always about doom and gloom. Never anything good. So Hillary Clinton will continue to try to push these changes on the American people, whether or not they're for the benefit of everyone. If she wants it done, I guarantee she'd be willing to go around Congress just like President Obama has proven he has. So, I'm done talking about her. I'm done. That's all we're talking about for Hillary Clinton tonight. Moving on. Bernie Sanders. He has probably the most played sound clip of the week. Go ahead and take a listen.
So, to answer your question, I would say, and I think it's similar to what the secretary said, when you're white, you don't know what it's like to be living in a ghetto. You don't know what it's like to be poor. You don't know what it's like to be hassled when you walk down the street or you get dragged out of a car.
Now, this has angered a lot of people. What exactly does race have to do with poverty? Because if you look statistically, if you look at the numbers, there are more white people living below the poverty line than minorities. Now, of course, we make up a greater percentage of the population, but when you break it down in numbers, in actual people, there are more white people living in poverty than there are any other race. So I don't know how Bernie Sanders can get away with saying that white people can't be poor. I mean, race has nothing to do with that. And I know he's trying to appeal to the black vote because he's losing it miserably against Hillary Clinton. But it is absolutely despicable that we have a man running for president who has such extreme... there's really no other way to call it except reverse racism. I mean, that term gets thrown around sometimes and people don't really agree with it, whatever. But I can't think of anything else to call it. Okay, when you start making judgments about a person based off the color of their skin, it doesn't matter if you're making those statements about the white population. It is still racist. You cannot go and say that white people can't live in poverty. There's tons of people out there who would disagree with him. I think it was a colossal mistake for Bernie Sanders to say that. I think, honestly, it was disrespectful for the white population who has to struggle to live paycheck to paycheck. It's shameful. But that's what the Democratic Party does, right? They try to separate us. They try to keep not diversifying us, dividing us based off race, right? They keep bringing up all these issues and saying, the white man's doing this. Oh, if you're black, you're doing this. You can't live in poverty if you're white, right? They continue to divide us. Under President Obama, right? He was supposed to be the great savior. He was supposed to make sure race relations were improved. He was supposed to include everyone, right? Race relations now are the worst they have been in decades. All under the leadership of a Democrat and under the first African American president. They're worse now than they have been. If anything, they've gotten worse under President Obama. He's done absolute damage to divide the United States. And that's where they succeed, right? The Democrats have identified that if they can divide the American people, if they can piss off enough people, that it's a winning strategy for them because it gives them something to talk about during the election cycle. Completely, the Democrats have 100% successfully divided the American people. As far as election news goes, that just about wraps it up. I'm going to take a quick water break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
The idea behind Youth Revolt is to let them, these liberal professors, let them know that we are here and we're ready to fight.
Youth Revolt. Speak without fear.
This is Dakota Wise, co-host of The Wise Conservative Show, here with an exclusive preview. I can guarantee that all of these illegal executive actions that President Obama has tried to take would be ruled legal, and the president would be allowed to legislate instead of executing the law that the Congress and the American people have put up in front of him. For more content, find us at Spreaker.com/TheWiseConservative. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are working on getting more commercials. I know, it's a little narcissistic to play myself in the advertisements. It's okay, we're working on it. Thank you so much for being here. The number to call in again is 909-297-5812. Again, that's 909-297-5812. I'm sure I've pissed off some of you. Call in. Let me hear it. Let's debate on whatever I've said. Phone lines are open. Again, that's 909-297-5812. Now, North Korea is back in the headlines this week, saying that if they were going to attack anyone, they would be attacking Washington, D.C., claiming that they could conduct a preemptive... I can't talk. They could attack Washington, D.C. with a nuclear weapon. Generally, the experts have pretty much laughed at North Korea. Most don't even think they could hit the west coast of the United States, let alone get a missile all the way to Washington, D.C. I'm not really sure what Kim Jong-un's problem is. I think maybe he's feeling a little neglected now that all the news has been focusing on ISIS. Maybe he's trying to prove he's still relevant. I don't know. Honestly, no one really takes North Korea serious at this point. I don't worry about it. I live on the West Coast. I don't worry about him trying to hit us. We have technology that could easily take down whatever missile they sent our way. And it would be a huge mistake, because I guarantee within hours we would have an invasion successfully being conducted of North Korea. It would be the end of the Kim Jong-un era. It would be the end of North Korea as we know it. So I don't worry. Kim Jong-un is an irrational actor, but he's not stupid. Well, he is stupid, but I don't think he's stupid enough to take out his only chance of staying in power. Unless, this is just a theory, unless there was some sort of coup in which Kim Jong-un knew he was going to lose control, then he might just be crazy enough to actually try and nuke someone, but he couldn't hit the United States. I'd be more worried if I was living in South Korea, or possibly even Japan. Anywhere else, that missile's going to be shot down, North Korea's going to be invaded. Now, moving on, last night Jason Veely, one of our very own Youth Revolt broadcasters, in fact, founder and president of Youth Revolt, had a very special guest on his show. He conducted a live interview with Ben Shapiro, a great conservative leader. He hosts a show, a podcast and radio show, as well as writes articles. Great guy, right? Shapiro had a great response to the question when it came to whether or not there is actual tolerance for conservatives in college. I touched on this a little bit earlier. Go ahead and take a listen to the clip.
You know, Ben, the left, they preach tolerance all the time. All we hear from them is tolerance, 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 how important it is to be tolerant. Between, first of all, the president of this school initially canceling the event, between these protesters not letting people to get in to the actual event, there's really no such thing as liberal tolerance, at least when it comes to conservatives speaking their mind on college campuses, is there, Ben?
No. Tolerance is just a word they use for you agree with us. If you disagree with them, then, of course, you're not supposed to be tolerated because you're a threat to the safety and security of the campus because you use words. And this is what people were saying. They were saying that it was actually dangerous for me to come to campus when, my entire career has been just saying things, essentially. And they're saying that it's unsafe if I come because, who knows, violence could break out. Well, it wasn't going to break out from our side, that's for sure. Nobody on our side wanted to do anything except sit there and listen.
Right. They make a very good point, and I've talked about this before on the show. The left, the Democratic Party, the progressive movement, they preach this tolerance, right? They claim to be the party of openness, of free speech, of accepting everyone. But their acceptance comes with a catch. You have to 100% agree with everything they're saying. If you don't, then they will shun you. They will treat you like Mr. Shapiro was treated. He was almost not able to deliver a speech at a public university. Now, I go to essentially one of the sister schools to Cal State LA. I attend Cal State Fullerton, and I can tell you that we have numerous numerous political speakers who are left-leaning. Never once have I seen a conservative speaker here. Now, of course, that is most likely because, to be honest, we don't have a lot of conservative students here. But as many left-leaning speeches as I've seen given here, it would be a nice change of pace to see someone like Ben Shapiro come in and deliver a speech. Now, it is absolutely ridiculous that a university would make such a huge deal about someone from the conservative movement coming in and giving a speech. It's supposed to be a public education system. It's supposed to be fair and balanced. They're not supposed to discriminate against people because of their political beliefs. Yet you had professors saying that Mr. Shapiro was a racist, that he was a terrible person and he shouldn't be allowed on campus. You had one professor say he wanted to fight the students who invited him to campus to give a speech. All he was doing is giving a speech, right? Harmless. It's First Amendment. He has the right to freedom of speech. These students were perfectly fine to try and get a very notable speaker onto their campus. Yet we had the left pushback. That wasn't acceptable, right? But I guarantee if they had gotten Bernie Sanders to come in to give a speech on campus, it would have been a huge deal. The university would have accepted it. There would have been no protesting. There would have been no potential violence. In that same segment, Shapiro talked about how the mob that was outside the speech was to the point where it was potentially going to turn into a riot. How they had to actually escort students who wanted to hear him speak in 4 at a time and make sure that they weren't going to come in and try and kill Mr. Shapiro. It is absolutely crazy that is how, honestly, there's no way to say it, but indoctrinated these students are. That is absolutely insane because you don't see that happening from the right. You don't see any conservative students going out and protesting because Bernie Sanders is going to be giving a speech or any other political activist for the Democrats is going to come give a speech. You don't see that happening. You just see it happening from the left. And that is because they have this they're hypocritical. I cannot talk tonight, guys. I'm sorry. They have this hypocritical aspect of their movement in which they pretend to be all inclusive, but you have to agree with them. There's the catch. I've talked about it before. Huge hypocrites. Speaking of hypocrites, we have Joe Biden in Israel trying to broker peace between the Palestinians and Israel. But coming in today, actually saw it as I was doing show prep just a little bit earlier. There have been 3 separate attacks in Israel today conducted by Palestinian citizens, in which one person has been killed. He was a student at Vanderbilt University here in the United States. Our prayers and thoughts go out to his family in this obviously tough times. It's an absolute disgrace. He was there with his wife just to see the sights. He was there as a tourist. He's killed because he was in Israel, and that's what the Palestinians do. 10 others have been injured in what the authorities are calling a deliberate terrorist attack by the Palestinians. We see these things pop up all the time, yet you have your news sources like CNBC, CNN. They don't talk about what's going on. They don't talk about the violence that the Palestine has endorsed. They don't talk about the violence that Palestine is causing. It's long been, before this president, it's been a long-standing policy that we do not negotiate with terrorists. Yet we have Joe Biden trying to negotiate with Palestine. Now, until Palestine rejects the Hamas leadership that has developed, Hamas is a state recognized by the country, by the United States, as being a sponsor of terrorism. So we cannot continue to try to attempt to broker peace with a group that we view as a terrorist organization. Now, in recent years, we've seen the liberal media try to spin this off as Israel being the bad guy, as just poor Palestine. That's not the case, folks. In Israel, Israeli citizens live every day with the potential of being attacked in a terrorist attack by the Palestinians. And they'll do these things. They'll just have random stabbing sprees, which is how a lot of these attacks have happened. They'll just have one or two men go in, stab as many people as possible. That, folks, is terrorism. Israel needs to have the United States continue to be their strongest ally. We need to continue to have a strong relationship with Israel. They're the only country in the Middle East that wouldn't love to see us blown off the face of the earth. Anywhere else, even places we traditionally would call an ally, Saudi Arabia, all these other countries that we still don't officially recognize as hating us, that we're sort of technically allies, they don't care about us. Israel is the only country in the Middle East that actually supports the United States. They're the only country there that actually supports democratic ideas and doesn't support terrible, horrible policies against, human rights violations. We have people in the United States, look at the feminist movement. We have the feminist movement in the United States who tries to play the United States off as being this horrible place for women, right? Oh, we don't have any women CEOs, or we don't have enough of them. Look to the Middle East, folks. Look to the Middle East. There we have women who are being stoned because they were raped by men, and when the men go and report it, they say the women seduced them, right? You have women being stoned for being raped. You have women who can't show their faces. You have women who can't drive cars. You have women who can't do anything without a man's permission. Where's the feminists who are getting pissed off about the human rights violations in the Middle East? But no. Instead, you have people trying to play off the Islamic religion as being for peace and love, and that the terrorist organizations are twisting it, and it's not actually representing Islamic faith. That's fine, okay? Let's pretend that ISIS isn't Muslim. Even then, you still have terrible, horrible human rights violations. You have terrible, horrible women's rights in any of these countries. Even without talking about the people who would love to kill every American they see. You still have terrible, horrible policies that is being pretty much indoctrinated in these countries because of their Islamic beliefs. Now, I know that's going to be an unpopular statement. And there are some great people, I'm sure, who are Muslim. But I'm saying that fundamentally, the religion, where's the feminists who are getting angry fundamentally over the religion that is putting down women? Okay? It's stuck in the Middle Ages, essentially. I'm not even sure where else in the world they still stone people. It's stuck in the Middle Ages. And until women can receive rights that they deserve in these Middle Eastern countries, I don't care what the religion stands for. They need to fix that. Where's the feminist? Now, last thing today, before we wrap up the show, let's go ahead and talk about tonight. We have 4 primaries for the Republican Party. Mississippi, Idaho, Michigan, and Hawaii will be casting their votes on who they want to be president. Now, pay particular attention tonight because there's been talk that Donald Trump's momentum is starting to slow. Now, if we see Ted Cruz have another great night, there are 150 delegates up. Ted Cruz currently trails by only 84 delegates, I believe. We could see potentially, if the rumors are true and Donald Trump's momentum is actually starting to slow, we could potentially see Ted Cruz pass Donald Trump tonight. Now, the polls going in show, I believe Donald Trump has the majority in all the states. I haven't exactly looked at them individually, so we'll have to pay, though, close attention. We might be talking about Thursday and have a completely new race. We'll see. And ladies and gentlemen, that just about wraps up our show. Thank you for tuning in live, for those of you who are listening to me right now. Otherwise, you can find us at youthrevolt.org. We are broadcasting as a member of the Youth Revolt Network. Or you can find us at Spreaker.com/TheWiseConservative. However you find us, thank you for listening. My name is Dakota Wise. Thank you for letting me take some of your time. With that being said, have a great night, and God bless.